Lioness fights off Hyenas to save her cub, but wait till you see who joins her. The savanna blazed under the relentless midday sun, a shimmering golden expanse stretching to the horizon. Heat waves rippled off the cracked earth, and the sparse acacia trees offered little refuge from the searing temperatures. Beneath one such tree, a lioness lay panting, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm as she kept a watchful eye on the tall grass nearby. Her amber eyes flickered with a quiet intensity, scanning the landscape for any movement, her ears twitching at the faintest sound. She wasn't just resting, she was guarding a secret. Hidden in the shade behind her was her cub, a fragile bundle of fur barely a month old, his wide eyes reflecting both innocence and a deep trust in his mother. The serenity was deceptive, though. The savanna was a stage for survival, and every shadow held potential danger. A rustle in the distance sent the lioness to her feet, muscles taut, her ears pinned forward. She sniffed the air, her nose picking up the faint, acrid scent of something ominous, hyenas. From the tall grass emerged a pack of 6, their slinking forms moving in disjointed harmony. The lead hyena, a hulking matriarch with jagged scars on her muzzle, let out a guttural laugh, the sound echoing like a macabre signal across the plains. The lioness froze, her body a coiled spring of tension. She knew the rules of this unforgiving land. Hyenas never played fair, and they were relentless when they sensed weakness. The lioness stepped forward, positioning herself between the hyenas and her cub. Her low growl rumbled like distant thunder, a warning and a promise. The cub whimpered softly behind her, pressing his small body into the dry earth as if trying to disappear. But the hyenas were emboldened by their numbers. They spread out in a wide arc, flanking her, their yellow eyes gleaming with malice. Then, in a heart-stopping moment, one hyena lunged. The lioness roared, a ferocious sound that seemed to shake the very ground. She met the attacker head-on, her claws slashing through the air with lethal precision. The hyena yelped and retreated, but the others closed in, snapping their jaws and testing her defenses. For every one she fended off, another moved closer, their strategy calculated and merciless. The cub let out a frightened cry, the sound cutting through the chaos like a blade. The lioness whipped her head around, her eyes locking on her baby, vulnerable and exposed. In that instant, her resolve hardened. She was outnumbered, outmatched, but she wasn't about to lose her cub. The confrontation reached a fever pitch, the lioness battling with a ferocity that belied her exhaustion. Blood flecked her golden coat as she fought, her roars echoing across the plains. The hyenas circled tighter, their mocking laughs a cruel symphony. But just as the lioness began to falter, something stirred on the horizon, a shadow moving against the golden backdrop. It was distant, almost imperceptible, but it was getting closer. The hyenas paused, their heads snapping up in unison. The lioness, too, glanced toward the approaching figure, her breathing ragged but her spirit unyielding. And then it became clear. Another lion was approaching, his mane dark and thick, his stride purposeful and commanding. His amber eyes burned with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the hyena's bravado. The balance of power was shifting, and the savanna held its breath. What would happen next would leave an indelible mark on this unforgiving land, a testament to the unbreakable bond between a mother and her cub, and the unexpected alliances forged in the fight for survival. Naya had not always been a lone warrior. Once, she had been part of a formidable pride, roaming the savanna with her sisters and the protection of a dominant male. Life was abundant then. Zebras and gazelles grazed near the watering holes, and the pride's roars echoed as a symphony of power across the plains. But harmony in the wild is fleeting, and Naya's world crumbled when a rival coalition of males attacked. The brutal fight left her pride scattered, her sisters defeated, and Naya on the run, carrying within her the only hope for her bloodline, an unborn cub. In the months that followed, Naya survived by sheer determination. She navigated treacherous territories, evading threats at every turn. Giving birth alone under the shelter of a rocky outcrop, she named her cub Tao, a name that meant lion, but also strength in her ancestral tongue. From the moment Tao opened his eyes, Naya vowed to protect him at any cost. Raising a cub as a solitary lioness was a battle against time and the elements. Prey was harder to catch without the coordinated efforts of a pride, and every kill risked attracting scavengers. Naya grew lean and scarred, but her resolve only deepened. Tao was her purpose, her reason to endure, and she would fight until her last breath to see him grow strong. Zala, the lead hyena, was no stranger to hardship either. Born into the chaos of a large, cutthroat clan, she clawed her way to dominance through cunning and ruthlessness. Hyenas lived by a brutal code. Respect was earned by those who could take it, and Zala's reign had been hard-won. Her muzzle bore the scars of countless battles, each one a testament to her survival. Unlike lions, who lived by their pride's unity, Zala thrived on strategy. She knew the savannah favored those who exploited weakness. For weeks, she had been watching Naya and Tao from the shadows, her sharp mind calculating the perfect moment to strike. A lioness alone with a cub was an opportunity too rare to ignore. Zala's clan had its own struggles. A season of drought had thinned the herds, leaving prey scarce and tensions high among her ranks. A kill like this, both the cub and the lioness, would feed her clan and reinforce her dominance. It wasn't just survival for Zala, it was a statement to her rivals. The male lion approaching from the horizon had a story of his own. Kovu was a wanderer, a nomad without a pride. He had once been part of a coalition with his brothers, but greed and betrayal shattered their bond. The betrayal had left him with a deep gash across his flank and a soul heavy with mistrust. For months, Kovu roamed the savannah, avoiding confrontation with larger prides and searching for meaning in his solitude. He had learned to rely only on himself, to trust no one. Yet, deep within him, the instincts of a protector still burned, a longing to lead, to be part of something greater. When Kovu saw the scene unfolding from a distance, the lioness valiantly fighting against the hyenas to save her cub, it stirred something dormant within him. He recognized the desperation in her roars, the courage in her defiance. She was protecting more than her cub. She was preserving a future. And in that moment, Kovu made his decision. He would not stand idly by while strength and hope were crushed by opportunistic scavengers. Tao was the embodiment of innocence and potential. Too young to understand the dangers of the world, he trusted implicitly in his mother's strength. His wide eyes often reflected curiosity more than fear, and even in the face of predators, he believed his mother's roars could chase away anything. Tao had a playful nature, often pouncing on his mother's tail or batting at her ears. Naya indulged him, knowing these moments of joy were fleeting in a land ruled by survival. Yet, she saw flashes of strength in him too, a determination in the way he stood his ground when startled or the instinctive way he crouched low at her command. Unbeknownst to Tao, he was more than just his mother's cub. He was her legacy, the hope of a bloodline that had endured countless generations. But for that hope to survive, Naya needed to outlast the darkness closing in around them. Each character brought their history, their struggles, and their resolve to this moment. The lioness, driven by love and duty. The hyena matriarch, compelled by hunger and ambition. The nomadic male, haunted by loss but seeking redemption. As they converged in the golden heart of the savannah, their stories collided, setting the stage for a battle that would test the limits of strength, loyalty, and survival. The air was thick with tension, the savannah holding its breath as the lioness and the hyenas faced off. Naya circled slowly, her lean muscles taut, her eyes darting between the pack's advancing members. Zala led the charge with a menacing confidence, her pack flanking in perfect sync, their laughter ringing out in cruel mockery. For every step Naya took backward to shield Tao, the hyenas took two forward, their circle tightening. Zala's plan was unfolding flawlessly. She was tiring the lioness, forcing her into a desperate defensive stance. With every lunge, Zala tested Naya's resolve, pushing her closer to breaking point. Tao cowered behind his mother, his small body trembling but his gaze fixed on her as if willing her to win. His soft whimpers cut through the noise of the struggle, spurring Naya to fight harder. She swiped at another lunging hyena, her claws slicing through fur, drawing blood. But the pack was relentless, their coordination overpowering her solitary strength. Then came the tipping point. A second hyena rushed from behind, its jaws snapping dangerously close to Tao. Naya reacted instinctively, throwing herself between her cub and the attacker. The move left her flank exposed, and Zala seized the opportunity. She lunged, her teeth sinking into Naya's shoulder. The lioness roared in pain, her body buckling under the weight of the matriarch. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like the battle was lost. Tao's frightened cries echoed across the plains as Zala's pack closed in for the kill. But just as the hyenas prepared to deliver the final blow, a deep, thunderous roar ripped through the air. It was a sound that commanded attention, striking fear into even the most brazen of predators. Kovu had arrived. The lone male lion strode into the fray with an air of authority, his dark mane flowing like a storm cloud. His golden eyes burned with intensity, locking onto the hyenas. He let out another roar, louder this time, a challenge that reverberated across the plains. Zala froze mid-attack, her jaws still clamped on Naya's shoulder. She turned her head toward Kovu, her yellow eyes narrowing. This was not part of her plan. A lone lioness was a manageable risk, but a fully grown male changed everything. Kovu wasted no time. He charged into the circle, his massive paws sending up clouds of dust. His first target was a hyena attempting to flank him. A single swipe of his powerful paw sent it tumbling, yelping in pain. The rest of the pack hesitated, their confidence shaken by the sheer force of his presence. Zala growled in frustration, her grip loosening on Naya. The lioness seized the opportunity, shaking free and staggering to her feet. Her amber eyes met Kovu's for a brief moment, a mixture of relief and caution flashing in her gaze. Kovu didn't pause to acknowledge her. He was a force unleashed, a whirlwind of claws and fangs. One by one, the hyenas retreated under his onslaught, their mocking laughter replaced by frantic yelps. Even Zala, defiant as she was, recognized the futility of the fight. She let out a sharp bark, a signal to her pack, and they scattered into the tall grass. The battlefield fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the lions. Naya turned to face Kovu, her body still tense, her instincts wary. A lone male lion was as much a potential threat as an ally. She positioned herself protectively in front of Tao, her gaze never leaving Kovu as she growled softly, a warning to keep his distance. Kovu, however, made no move toward them. His powerful frame relaxed slightly, his eyes softening as they landed on the trembling cub peeking out from behind Naya. The sight seemed to stir something in him, a flicker of recognition that Naya couldn't decipher. For a long moment, they stared at each other, two strangers bound by an unspoken understanding. Naya's growl subsided, though her stance remained guarded. Kovu finally broke the silence with a low rumble, a sound that was neither threatening nor submissive. It was almost reassuring. He turned away, walking a few paces before lying down under a nearby tree. His message was clear. He wasn't here to harm them. Naya hesitated, her instincts clashing with her exhaustion. She looked down at Tao, who had inched closer to her, his wide eyes fixed on Kovu. The cub's fear seemed to ebb, replaced by a budding curiosity. Naya's gaze shifted back to Kovu, watching him closely. He made no further moves, his posture relaxed yet alert, his amber eyes scanning the horizon for lingering threats. For the first time in weeks, Naya allowed herself a moment of respite. She lowered her head to nuzzle Tao, her silent promise to protect him unbroken. But as she settled beside him, her eyes never left the mysterious male under the tree. The wild was unpredictable, and trust was a luxury few could afford. Yet, in this unlikely encounter, a fragile alliance had formed. And though neither Naya nor Kovu could have known it, their paths were now intertwined in ways that would shape the fate of their kind. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, painting the savanna in hues of amber and crimson, the savanna prepared for the next chapter of their story, a tale of survival, trust, and the unbreakable bond forged in the heart of the wild. The savanna transformed under the light of the crescent moon, its shadows stretching long and deep. Naya rested her weary body in a small grove, her sharp ears attuned to every rustle. Tao nestled beside her, his small chest rising and falling in peaceful slumber. Across the grove, Kovu lay still, his golden eyes reflecting the faint glow of the stars. He was watching, not them, but the landscape, ever vigilant for danger. The lioness still felt the weight of caution. Kovu had saved them, yes, but trust in the wild was hard-earned. Male lions often posed a grave threat to cubs they hadn't fathered, and Naya knew better than to let her guard down. Yet, something about Kovu's presence felt different. He had no threatening postures, no signs of dominance. He simply watched and protected. As dawn broke, Naya knew she had to hunt. The hyena's attack had drained her energy, and the days of sparse prey were taking their toll. Tao needed nourishment, and she couldn't afford to let her strength wane. She rose quietly, signaling for Tao to stay hidden. To her surprise, Kovu stirred. He padded over to her, his powerful frame moving with quiet confidence. Naya bristled at his approach, her muscles tensing instinctively. But Kovu stopped a few feet away, his posture neutral. He glanced toward the open plains, then back at her. It wasn't a threat, it was an offer. The hunt was a delicate dance, a testament to their unspoken partnership. Kovu stayed slightly ahead, scanning the horizon for movement, while Naya used her agility to circle and position herself for the chase. Their target was a young wildebeest grazing near a watering hole. When the moment came, they moved as if choreographed by instinct. Kovu charged, his presence startling the herd and driving the wildebeest toward Naya, who waited in perfect ambush. With a swift and powerful leap, she brought the prey down. For a moment, Naya stood over the kill, panting heavily, her gaze flicking to Kovu. He had stopped a short distance away, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Instead of claiming the kill, as most males would, he sat back and waited. The gesture was unexpected, almost respectful. Naya tore a piece of the kill, dragging it back to Tao, who eagerly began to eat. Only after Tao was fed did Naya turn back to Kovu, motioning subtly with her head. It was an invitation, one she never thought she'd extend. Kovu approached cautiously, taking his share without any display of dominance. The hunt had bound them in a fragile trust. The savannah's tranquility was shattered that evening by the arrival of a storm. Thunder rolled across the sky, and lightning split the darkness, illuminating the plains in brief, terrifying flashes. Naya and Kovu took shelter in a rocky alcove, with Tao nestled between them. As the storm raged, a familiar, sinister sound rose above the wind. The cackling laughter of hyenas. Zala and her pack had returned, their hunger amplified by defeat. The storm provided perfect cover for an ambush, and they came in greater numbers this time. Naya's growl reverberated in the confined space, her body shielding Tao. Kovu stood beside her, his presence towering and unyielding. The hyenas advanced slowly, their eyes gleaming with malice. The fight that followed was ferocious. Naya fought with the feral intensity of a mother defending her cub, her claws slashing through the chaos. Kovu was a force of nature, his roars shaking the air as he battled the pack with unrelenting strength. Together, they were a united front, their movements synchronized as if they had fought together for years. Zala, determined to prove her dominance, lunged at Kovu with a vicious snarl. The two clashed in a blur of teeth and claws, their snarls blending with the thunder. Kovu's sheer power overwhelmed her, and with a final, resounding roar, he sent the hyena matriarch retreating into the storm. The pack scattered once more, their morale shattered. As the rain subsided, the savannah fell silent, save for the panting breaths of the victorious lions. In the aftermath of the battle, Naya turned to Kovu, her amber eyes meeting his. There was no longer any wariness in her gaze, only gratitude and respect. Kovu, his body battered but upright, dipped his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. Tao peeked out from behind Naya, his wide eyes taking in the towering figure of Kovu. The cub stepped forward tentatively, his curiosity overcoming his fear. He nuzzled against Kovu's leg, a gesture of trust that made Naya's heart swell. In that moment, they were no longer strangers brought together by circumstance. They were a unit, a family forged in the fires of survival. The savannah, with all its danger and beauty, had united them in a bond that defied nature's harshest rules. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the savannah in hues of gold and crimson, the trio stood together. Naya, the fierce protector, Kovu, the redeemed wanderer, and Tao, the spark of life that tied them all together. Their bond was fragile, like the first bloom after a long drought, but it was real and it was strong. For the first time in years, Naya felt a flicker of hope, not just for her and Tao, but for the future that Kovu's presence promised. The storm had passed, and with it, the barriers between them. What lay ahead was uncertain, but together, they would face it, bound by trust and a newfound sense of belonging. The savannah awoke to a golden dawn, the land shimmering with renewed life after the night's storm. The air carried a sense of rebirth, every blade of grass glistening with dewdrops. The trio, Naya, Kovu, and little Tao, moved with a quiet unity. The bond they had formed was unspoken but unmistakable. As days turned into weeks, their lives became intertwined. Kovu remained steadfast, offering his strength to hunt and protect. He wasn't just a powerful ally but a steady presence that Tao began to emulate. The cub followed Kovu with an admiration that softened the once guarded Lioness's heart. Tao thrived under their combined care, his once timid steps now confident as he explored the world around him. Kovu's patience complemented Naya's fierce determination, and together they created a sanctuary for the cub in a land fraught with peril. Word of their unusual pride began to ripple through the animal kingdom. Lone males were rarely seen coexisting with lionesses and cubs, let alone taking on a protective role. Their bond became a living testament to the power of connection and survival against all odds. The dynamic trio's presence shifted the balance of their territory. Predators who had once encroached upon Naya's domain now hesitated, wary of the formidable alliance. Even the hyena pack, led by the once indomitable Zala, had retreated to the fringes, their laughter reduced to distant echoes. One morning, as the sun bathed the savannah in light, Tao crouched low in the grass, his tail flicking with excitement. A butterfly flitted just out of reach, its vivid wings capturing his full attention. He pounced playfully, missing the insect but landing in a heap of giggles. Kovu watched from a short distance, his eyes reflecting pride and protectiveness. Naya lay nearby, her head resting on her paws, a rare expression of peace gracing her face. In this moment, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Their story wasn't just one of survival. It was a reflection of the greater truths that defined life on the savannah. Nature often demanded conflict, but it also created space for unexpected bonds. The fierce instincts that had once divided predator and protector now wove them into a family. Kovu's journey from a solitary wanderer to a steadfast guardian, and Naya's transformation from a lone mother to a trusting partner, spoke to the resilience of spirit. Together, they showed that even in the wild, where life was often brutal and short, there was room for compassion and cooperation. As the seasons passed, the trio's story became a legend. Naya and Kovu raised Tao with unwavering devotion, teaching him not only the skills of survival, but also the values of loyalty and courage. One fateful day, as Tao stood at the edge of their territory, now a strong and capable young lion, he turned back to look at his parents. Kovu stood tall, his dark mane streaked with silver, while Naya's amber eyes glowed with pride. They had given him more than life. They had given him a future. Tao roared into the wind, his voice carrying the legacy of their extraordinary bond. It echoed across the plains, a reminder to all who heard it that even in the harshest of worlds, love and trust could flourish. Their story rippled beyond the savannah. Wildlife researchers who observed their unusual pride were inspired, using it as a rallying cry for conservation efforts. Documentaries showcased the tale of Naya, Kovu, and Tao, highlighting the importance of coexistence and the fragile beauty of nature. Viewers from around the world were captivated by their bond, moved to protect the wild places where such stories could unfold. Donations poured into sanctuaries, and efforts to curb poaching intensified. Their tale had not only saved lives, it had sparked a movement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, the pride rested atop a hill. Naya and Kovu lay side by side, their gazes fixed on Tao, who stood silhouetted against the fading light. They had defied the odds, rewritten the rules, and created a legacy that would outlast them. In the vast expanse of the savannah, their story was not just a chapter in the cycle of life. It was a testament to the enduring power of trust, love, and resilience. And as the stars emerged to the night sky, their bond shone as brightly as the constellations above, a reminder that even in the wild, family could be found in the most unexpected places.